football fans. Thanks for joining me, the football guy, for today's episode of Throwback Thursday. We're going to start a new format with today's video, but first, let's take a look at last week's focus recap of the 2016 Detroit Lions. Last week's throwback focus landed on the 2016 Detroit Lions. Jim Caldwell was picked to succeed Jim Schwartz as the head coach of the Detroit Lions in 2014. Caldwell would coach the Lions from 2014 to 2017, compiling 36 wins and 28 losses for a 56.3 win percentage. In 2016, he would guide the Lions to a 9-7 record and get them into the playoffs. Stafford took every snap under center that year for the Lions, passing for 4,327 yards and 24 touchdowns. His best game came in Week 6 against the Los Angeles Rams, as he threw for 270 yards, 4 touchdowns, and had a passer rating of 139.8. Overall, the 2016 Lions rushing attack ranked 30th in the league for rushing yards and scored only 9 touchdowns on a 3.7 yards per carry average. Theo Riddick was drafted in 2013 by the Lions and has played in the NFL for 7 seasons, his first 6 with the Lions. 2016 was his best season rushing for 357 yards and 1 touchdown. Zach Zenner was signed by the Lions as an undrafted free agent in 2015. He was the second leading rusher on the team in 2016 with 334 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. Dwayne Washington was drafted in 2016 by the Lions in the 7th round. His rookie season was also his most productive season for the Lions with 265 rushing yards and 1 touchdown. Golden Tate was drafted in the 2nd round of the 2010 draft by the Seahawks and played 4 years in Seattle before coming to Detroit in 2014. He was an immediate starter in Detroit and made the Pro Bowl his first and most productive year there, putting up 1,331 yards and 4 touchdowns. 2016 was his second best year in Detroit, hauling in 91 catches for 1,077 yards and 4 touchdowns. Marvin Jones was drafted in the 5th round by the Bengals in 2012. He played 3 years for the Bengals and then came over to the Lions for the next 5 years. He led the league in yards per reception in 2017 with an 18.0 yard average. 2016 was his 3rd most productive season with the Lions, putting up 930 yards on 55 receptions and adding 4 touchdowns. Eric Ebron was drafted in the 1st round of the 2014 draft by the Lions and played his first 4 years in Detroit before moving on to Indianapolis in 2018. 2016 was his best season in Detroit, catching 61 passes for 711 yards and 1 touchdown. Ebron would make the Pro Bowl in 2018, his first season with the Colts. The 2016 Lions fielded a below-average defense in rushing yards, ranked 18th, and passing yards, ranked 19th. Kerry Hyder came to Detroit in 2015 and became a rotational backup player at defensive end. He excelled in 2016 as a situational pass rusher and piled up 8 sacks, his best output during his time with the Lions. Tahir Whitehead was drafted in the 5th round of the 2012 draft by the Lions and cracked the starting lineup at linebacker in 2014. He played 10 years in the league, his most productive season being 2016, as he was the team's leading tackler with 132 tackles. Darius Slay played his first 7 seasons in Detroit. In 2016, he tied for the team lead in interceptions with 2 and had 1 forced fumble. He was voted to the Pro Bowl 5 times and made the All-Pro first team once. Taylor Decker was selected in the 1st round with the 16th overall pick and has played his entire 7-year career with the Lions. He was a full-time starter at left tackle from day 1, starting all 97 of the games he's played in. Defensive tackle Ashawn Robinson was selected in the 2nd round and has played 7 years in the league. He would play for the Lions his first 4 seasons, starting sporadically, before moving on to the Los Angeles Rams. Miles Killebrew was selected in the 4th round and played his first 5 years in Detroit primarily as a backup. He had 2 career interceptions for the Lions. Well, that's our recap, and I'll tell you, Stafford put up some good numbers that year, but there wasn't much of a run game or defense. Now let's see which team we'll be focusing on this week. Okay, now let's see which team we're going to be focusing on today. As always, we'll spin 3 wheels. The first wheel will determine the team that we pull off the wheel for our focus. The second wheel will determine the decade, and the third wheel will pinpoint the exact year of our focus. Let's get to it. All right, so this is our team picker here, so let's get that one spinning. Here we go. Let's see, Denver, Green Bay, the Raiders, the Chargers. Looks like we're going to land on the Los Angeles Chargers. I'll go through the decade picker. So here's our decade picker. Get that spinning. 2020s. All right, so it looks like the Los Angeles Chargers of the 2020s. So let's see which year we're going to focus on for 2020s. Right. 2022 looks like. Yes, so it's going to be the Los Angeles Chargers of 2022. This week's throwback focuses on the 2022 Los Angeles Chargers. Brandon Staley took over the Chargers head coaching position in 2021. He's gone 19-15 in his short tenure to date. In 2022, he would guide the Chargers to a 10-7 record and get them into the playoffs. They lost a wild card game to Jacksonville Jaguars by a score of 31-30. Justin Herbert started every game for the Chargers in 2022 and helped the team become the third-ranked offense in passing yards. He threw for 4,739 yards and 25 touchdowns. His best game came in Week 1 against the Raiders, as he threw for 279 yards, 3 touchdowns, and had a passer rating of 129.4. Overall, the 2022 Chargers rushing attack ranked 30th in the league for rushing yards and scored 15 touchdowns on a 3.8 yards per carry average. Austin Ekeler ran for 915 yards on 204 attempts, scoring 13 touchdowns and putting up a 4.5 yards per carry average. Ekeler was also the fourth leading receiver on the team with 722 yards on 107 receptions. Joshua Kelley was the team's second leading rusher, amassing 287 yards on 29 attempts. He scored 2 touchdowns while pushing a 4.2 yards per carry average. Justin Herbert, the quarterback, was the third leading rusher on the team in 2022, grinding out 147 yards. Mike Williams was the Chargers' deep ball threat, hauling in 63 passes for 895 yards and putting up a 14.2 yards per reception average. Josh Palmer was the second leading receiver on the team with 769 yards on 72 receptions and averaged 10.7 yards per catch. Veteran Keenan Allen was third on the team in receiving yards with 752 and caught 66 passes for an 11.4 yards per catch average. The 2022 Chargers defense ranked 7th in passing yards allowed and 30th in the rushing yards allowed. Khalil Mack led the defensive unit, racking up 8 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 50 tackles on his way to being selected to the Pro Bowl for the 7th time. Drue Tranquill was the team's leading tackler with 146 tackles and also had 1 forced fumble and 1 interception. Derwin James was the leader in the secondary, intercepting 2 passes, forcing 2 fumbles, and amassing 115 tackles, and made the Pro Bowl roster for the 3rd time in his career. Zion Johnson was selected in the 1st round with the 17th overall pick and started all 17 games for the Chargers at offensive guard. Running back Isaiah Spiller was selected in the 4th round out of Texas A&M and played in 6 games. He would rush for 41 yards and catch 3 passes for 13 yards. Jamaree Salyer was selected in the 6th round out of Georgia and started 14 games at offensive guard. I hope you enjoyed this week's Throwback Thursday. As always, I invite you to please comment on your favorite memories, players, and stories so we can all relive the glory of the past. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.